clients are mostly execs, C-level VPs, as well as mid-career in top tech and tech adjacent companies, and they ask, what is it like working with you? What's your value add? We wanted to do a full episode on it so we can clearly explain what that is.
Yeah, when we do Q&As or people email us, they're very curious, what does a negotiation service look like?
A lot of how we run our business is based on first principles. So based on logic, not on any predetermined structure. Before we started our company, I was informally helping people with negotiations. I had a reputation for being good at negotiations. I've always negotiated salaries and rent and flights and tickets and concert tickets, everything. I negotiate everything because I think of it as there's something on the table that could make us both better off. Why not explore that? That has always been my approach with negotiations. Why not make both parties better off? So I got a reputation for being good at negotiations, and people wanted my help, mostly salary and contract negotiations, sometimes rent and other stuff.
One really important thing that comes up again and again, and we try to educate our followers and potential clients on this, but negotiations start much earlier than most people think. We often have people reach out to us once they've received a written offer or they already had the verbal offer call thinking, okay, I got through the interviews and now I'm going to negotiate. And when we're talking with them and we dig into what has happened up to that point, they actually made a lot of mistakes along the way where their initial offers probably ended up coming in lower than what it could have been because of the little bits of leverage giving away that they did along the way. So we always try to emphasize that the earlier we work with people, the better ROI that we get, because we can make sure that you're prepped from day one.
How does someone work with us? You can just email us. Our email is on our website. You can DM us everywhere, Instagram, LinkedIn. Where else are we? We don't have a TikTok.
We have a newsletter.
We have a YouTube
channel.
Yeah. So
Apple
DM
Podcasts.
us anywhere. We monitor it pretty closely.
Yeah.
So you DM us, then you get on a call with Alex himself. As we're scaling our business, you might actually get on a call with our assistant, but right now it's mostly Alex. So Alex gets on the free consultation call with you that is supposed to be 15 minutes. We're trying to under promise and over deliver, and usually these calls go quite a bit longer.
Just a little longer. No more than half an hour.
Yeah, no more than half an hour. There's no time.
It's just because there's so much that I want to share and make sure that we cover, and
it's very generous.
I want people to get value even out of just free one-on-one calls with us.
Yeah. So the consultation call is more to see if we're a mutually good fit, because we might not be able to help you, or you might just not want to work with us. That's totally fine. On that call, we want to learn a bit about your situation. For example, some reasons why we might not be a good fit to work together is you've already said yes to the offer. A lot of people don't realize that if you've already gotten an offer and you've said yes.
Said yes in that you signed.
Or you signed, but even verbally if you said yes. There are some exceptions, but it would be a bit of a flag if you go back on your yes and you keep negotiating. There are some exceptions. I can cover this another time. So if you've already said yes, there's no more room to negotiate, and it doesn't make sense for us to work together. We get on a call, we see if you're a good fit. You tell us a little bit about your situation. We might give you some free tips. We try. Alex is super generous, so he tries to give you some free tips. For example, he'll say, hey, try to get a written offer. We've said this publicly everywhere. Getting a written offer is the best possible leverage you can have other than having another offer. One of the best things you can do, get a written offer. Look at our past content as to why.
I basically try to get a better understanding of their situation and give the free initial pointers around that.
Yeah.
But I also share what it's like to work with us, to answer any follow-on questions. That's where a lot of people are curious, what does a negotiation service look like?
Yeah. So we'll cover what does it look like to work with us, and we'll also cover the price, which I'm sure you're all wondering about. What is it like working with us? Let's say you want to move forward, or even if you're not sure, after the call, we send you an example of our contract. And we've tried really hard for it to stay one page. We've tried so hard. Sometimes I feel like those college students that
that decrease the font and like the punctuation.
We actually have done that because I really want it to be one page.
Just easy to digest.
Have it all there. And sometimes we've decreased the font size or cut redundant text out. And We send you that example and you can actually sign on the Google Doc. So we send you a Google Doc of the contract. I didn't know you could do this, but I'm like, how do we minimize the effort for people to just say yes and move forward? Let's have them sign on the Google Doc. I had never heard of this before, but I searched this. Is it enforceable and can you do this? You can, and it's enforceable. So we went with that.
I think it's just made it very easy
it's
for
made
people
it so
to
easy.
sign it. If you do sign the contract, we are able to start working with you right away. The nature of our business, there's a lot of urgency that can come up very last minute. So Garrett and I actually save bandwidth every day that we block off for clients where very urgent needs come up.
Well, the reality is we work overtime.
You add additional bandwidth. You're not saving additional bandwidth. Given that, especially for those who approach us and they want to start working together and they have an upcoming negotiation, they need to get back to a recruiter that day.
I can squeeze them in.
We usually are able to squeeze them in for the first call. Right,
maybe same day, it depends. Probably not same day. The next day, maybe. Yeah.
But as soon as you sign the contract, what happens next is we send you access to an onboarding portal, which includes a survey that you fill out. It's a Google form. It's pretty fast to get through, but it's for us to understand all the context of what companies you're applying to, where you are in the process, what your number or range is. It's okay for you to share your number and range with us, but you don't want to share that with the employers.
Yes,
right?
And for clarity, some people might think, and actually I've heard some potential clients or clients say this, oh, let me share with you the numbers because you might need this for your own business. And to be clear, we actually don't care about the numbers at all, because you may have heard us say this before, but we don't think market data matters that much in negotiations. This is one of our hottest takes. I want to go into this very quickly because I don't want people to think they're just using us to gather data. You don't even have to share. I mean, it doesn't make sense not to share because, clearly we'll be helping you.
Right.
But market data is not important in negotiations because every company has its own compensation philosophy and every team has its own specific budget for that open seat at that given time. So for that open seat, they may need to hire very desperately because they might have a product launch, someone quit, the team is struggling or whatever, or they might just not have enough budget because it's a tough market. So market data does not matter. You can go to the team and say, hey, I did all this research, this is how much I think I should be paid, and they're like, well, we have our own budget, basically.
Yeah.
For context, I used to work at Salary.com where I was advising companies. I was on the other side, but other side where I was advising hundreds of companies on how to pay for specific roles. And this was from government to tech and all types of companies, all types of sizes. And a lot of them would be like, I see how much the market is paying. I want to pay this much.
Yeah.
Overriding whatever we were recommending. So we don't benefit from you sharing your market data or your research or your current or past salary or your offer. We don't care pretty much at all. We do care in terms of figuring out how much we increase it, obviously.
Right.
We'll get to that in a bit. After you sign with us, before you get on a call with me, you go to this website, we give you access, and you fill in this form. The form will be, this is very, very important, what your priorities are. And we go deep into it. Is it cash? Is it equity? Is it start date? Is it vacation, PTO? Is it access to leadership, having direct reports and things like that? We want to get a sense of what's important to you, and we will devise your negotiation strategy according to your priorities. However, we have our own priorities in your negotiation, which overrides your priorities, and those are you not losing the offer and you not jeopardizing your relationship with the company. We will prioritize those over anything else, even over your own priorities, unless you really don't care about this company. But even then, it's good to have a good reputation, good relationship with any company out there. That's to give people some reassurance that our approach always prioritizes the offer and the relationship. We don't want you to jeopardize the offer or the relationship.
Yeah, and just to reinforce, we're merely here to advise, but the client makes the final decision. We will propose to them, if you really wanted to try to squeeze out every dime and really maximize your comp, this is how you would do it. And we'd also share the risks of doing that. And we leave it up to the client to decide how they want to do things.
Absolutely. The way I communicate with the clients is like, hey, I think you should do this and that, but it's ultimately up to you. Well, first is what do you think? Because they might have information they haven't shared with me. For example, sometimes I'll say, I think you should say this, and they're like, oh, actually they mentioned this other thing. Oh, okay. It's a very collaborative process. In case you have information you haven't shared with me that is relevant. Another way I help people go through the negotiations is I give a sense of the risk. For example, when a company says this is our best and final offer, I will say, you know what, based on what I've heard so far, if they either didn't give you an increase at all, or they only gave you a very small increase, chances are that they have more in their budget. And I will say, I think you could push one more time. I personally would push one more time. Even though they said this is our best and final, I'm not getting the sense that it's true. I think the risk is very minimal, but it is non-zero. You are increasing your chances of them rescinding the offer by 0.0001. Up to you how important this amount is versus having that peace of mind that it will not get rescinded. And not only I want them to have ownership over the decision, but it's also a very personal decision because some people haven't been finding the right job for a long time, months, if not years, with this current hiring environment. And they might really need a job and they don't care about extra couple thousand or couple tens of thousands, or just want to get the ball rolling. And that's why it's a very personal decision. I will never pressure you to do one thing or another. I'm only here to advise, like you said. Okay, so you send the contract, you fill out the onboarding form, and the onboarding form, like we said, is what your priorities are. There's also what has happened with the company. I have a specific list of questions there that is very important for me to know before we jump on a call. For example, when did you first apply? Was it a referral? If it's a referral, it's a bit of a bonus. For big tech, it's not that big of a difference, but especially for smaller companies, it matters if you were referred. If it's like a company of 10 people, if someone internally referred you, you will probably be favored to some extent. We need to know when you applied, were you referred by anyone, how much time passed between when you applied versus when they reached out. I want to get a sense of the timeline, and it gives me a sense of how desperate are they to get you, how much they want you, how quickly do they want to hire for this role. We also ask if they've received a verbal offer, a written offer, when they received it, if they did, how much was it, when's the deadline if there is one, do they have other offers, do they have other companies they're talking to, all the details of those other offers and companies they're talking to, for us to get a holistic view of it. After you fill out the intake form, we've prepared a few videos as an effort to scale ourselves, but also so you can get this information on your own time at your own pace, and you have it there if you want to go back to it again and again. It's a win-win for all of us. The videos are basically what is our negotiation philosophy, and TLDR right now is we think negotiations should be very collaborative and creative and very positive, nothing like you see in shows. So what is our negotiation philosophy? How to handle the first call with the recruiter, how to handle the verbal offer, how to think about the interviews throughout, what you should and should not share throughout the interview process, how to ask for a written offer, what to do after you get a written offer, how the rest of the negotiation goes, how to say yes to a company and how to say no to a company, and maybe a couple other videos.
Yeah, I think there are some things like how you should be making your asks, what to ask for first and when. A
template of an email of how to ask.
Yeah.
Yes. How to handle the calls, any calls, and things like that.
And again, this is even after our work is done. Our clients will have access to this. They can refer it back to this for future negotiations, as for their own learning. When we work with clients, we want to leave them better off in perpetuity. Not just, hey, we're only here to help you right now, but we want them to improve as negotiators and bring that into their careers, their next jobs as they progress in their professional lives.
And I think the interesting thing is that when we help people with their negotiations, we have noticed, and we've given this feedback from our past clients, that they gain more confidence in all areas of their lives, which is so rewarding for me to hear. It's so much more beyond their job offers or their promotions and their professional lives, but beyond, even in their social lives. After people watch the videos, they get on a call with me. Depending on their sense of urgency, it can be, like we said, sometimes same day. That's very unlikely because our schedule is so booked, but if it's super urgent, I will get on a call, sometimes very late at night, and then most typically it's the next day or next business day. We get on a call and we go over the situation and make sure I understand what they're going through, what has happened, what has been said and done, and I help them devise their negotiation strategy. I explain how the big picture works with the companies in general and how it works with us. And then we get on as many calls as the client needs. I ask them sometimes to forward me emails if they want to.
It stays fully confidential.
Of course,
it only stays
fully
between.
confidential. The numbers, the companies, everything. We are very privacy and security focused. The reason why I would love to see, let's say, emails, they don't have to, but it's because sometimes the client will say something like, they said we don't negotiate our first offer. And then when I see the email, it says, we don't negotiate the base salary. So the client heard it as we just don't negotiate the first offer at all, but the fine print is actually that they just don't negotiate the base, but there's so much more beyond base salary. So I like seeing the actual interactions with the company, emails, text, or thorough notes of their phone calls. To be clear, I don't negotiate on their behalf. I'm just in the background. The company doesn't know that they're being coached by a negotiations consultant, but sometimes they even ping me live when they're on the calls. This has happened a couple of times. They're like, I'm on the call with a recruiter and they said this and this. What do I say? And sometimes if I'm not on another call, I can coach them sort of live.
You're like the coach on the sidelines where they're literally playing the game.
Yeah. That doesn't happen as much just because I'm on a lot of calls, and we want to prep you to handle this on your own. Throughout the process, they will send me emails, texts, we get on calls, I send them templates, I give them pep talks, and half my job is they're like, I haven't heard from them in a few hours, am I going to lose the offer? And I'm the therapist. Don't worry, this is very common, it's probably a tactic, or they're very busy because they're trying to get alignment or approval from the compensation team and things like that.
And it's helpful for clients having that reassurance because you have seen this situation so many times with other clients, but for that client, it's the one job that they are negotiating, or maybe just a couple of jobs that they're talking to. So they're seeing it in vacuum while they are in the game, whereas you have seen it outside, standing outside of the court. When you say part of the job is basically being a therapist, we found it very valuable for clients knowing that they get reassurance from someone who has seen it so many times.
I've been surprised. Now I get it, but at the beginning I was like, of course they're gonna take a few hours to not respond to you. At minimum, they're getting alignment from the teams, or everyone's busy. It's hard to get a couple people in a meeting room, or it might even be a tactic. But I also understand, as the person who's negotiating with usually the one job that you haven't had a job for a few months or even a couple years, the stakes are so high that you lose perspective on what's normal and what's not. And it's my honor to hold people's hand throughout this process. To me, it seemed like such a low value add, but we've gotten so much feedback, like, thank you for being there for me when I was the most stressed out ever. Or like, I'm sorry I freaked out. I'm like, don't worry. Literally most, if not all of our clients go through the freak out phase because the stakes are so high. And then the client will text me or call me or email me and say, I got on the call, this is what the recruiter said or the hiring manager said, what do I say now, what do I do now? I propose some language or strategy. We sometimes go through drafts together. I say, here's what I propose, can you fill it in with your own language, how you say things, I don't want it to sound like me, here's how I would say it. And then get it back to me, because sometimes they might add a sentence or a word that might raise a bit of a flag. Things like, I'm not comfortable sharing this and that. I don't like that phrase. I've said it multiple times. I think it makes people feel defensive and they feel like they made you uncomfortable. So when I see things like that, like, I'm not comfortable, like, oh, I think you should rephrase this to another way, or like, here's a proposed way. And so I take a final pass at things just to make sure it's crisp. And again, I'm only here to advise, and this is my proposed draft. You can do whatever you want. And then they go and execute. We see negotiations as a marathon, not a sprint. There will be multiple rounds of negotiating. and I'll be there along the way the entire time. Then they sign. We ask for a copy of the signed agreement. We ask this of everyone just to not have any favoritism or anything like that. The reason we ask for this is because of our pricing model, which is currently a flat fee plus a success fee. Last year we had a success fee only model. Now that we have more demand, that doesn't work for us anymore. Also because we are putting in a lot of time into these negotiations and people are learning. So first, it's good to be compensated for your time. Second, people are learning about negotiations even if they don't increase their offer, which has happened very rarely. Third, I've noticed that clients, when we had a success fee only model, they still wanted to pay because they could tell we were so dedicated, we spent so much time and effort. And sometimes they Venmo'd me hundreds of dollars. I was like, no, I returned it because we agreed to only have a success fee model. We didn't increase your offer. It's fine. And then eventually, as our business grew, we just don't have the bandwidth to do success fee model only anymore. It's a good place to be in.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good signal when our clients, they want to pay us more than what we asked for. And they're really insisting. We're like, we should probably relook at this pricing and make sure that we make our service valued and priced that's commensurate with what the client felt like they got out of it.
Yeah. I think we changed it once a client literally Venmo'd me hundreds of dollars, even though we only had a success fee model. It was a tough case. She had given away all her leverage and she signed with us very late in the process. I was like, I'm happy to help. I'll take it. There's no promises. I can never promise results. I don't know what we're working with the company, especially since if people have given away leverage, I can't undo your mistakes.
Yeah.
But I took it. We couldn't increase the offer. This is one of the very rare cases. I think we haven't increased someone's offer only for not even a handful of people. Great. So this brings us to, this is why it's so important to work with us sooner than later. We don't work on an hourly basis. We work on, like I said, flat fee and a success fee. Success fee is the delta between your initial offer and your final offer that you sign within the same company. A given company's initial and final offer. This is not an hourly basis, and so it actually benefits you to work with us sooner than later because that fee split per hours worked together is much lower.
Yeah, you're paying the same whether we work with you for weeks or months or whether we work for you for several days if you brought us in later on in the negotiation. But ultimately, our pricing is just purely based off of the flat fee plus a success fee, which is the delta between the initial and final offer. So it only benefits the client, and we always try to do that education and reinforce it. But a lot of people don't realize that negotiations are starting much earlier in the process.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. Would it make sense to walk through a quick case study that's showing what has happened with this person? Didn't end up becoming a client, but we were chatting with them over several weeks, and he was deciding on whether to work with us while he was still negotiating. So when he first approached us, we're going to call this person's name Dylan to protect their privacy. Dylan was interviewing with the company, and he booked a free call with me, but he had already started the conversations. He was in the middle of the interview process. Over the free call, I gave him some initial pointers, and he said, okay, let me think about this. And I didn't hear back from him for about 2 weeks, and then he got back to me and said, hey, I still haven't decided on whether I want to work with you, but the interviews have moved along and this is what's happened. And he actually shared with me the back and forth that he had with the company. He actually did a write-up of what had happened up to that point, as well as he pulled quotes from some of the emails that he had with the company. And as I was reviewing that, I was like, it was hurting my heart. I was like, there were certain things that he did that gave away leverage, and he didn't even know if he had the offer yet or not.
And what seniority was he? What type of company? What type of education?
He was coming in as one of the early marketing hires for a tech company. It wasn't a huge public tech startup. It was a Series A to C company. I think it was something in health tech. He was pretty mid-career, probably had at least 10 years of work experience, and so he would have been coming in as a somewhat senior, not C-suite level marketing hire, but probably a director of marketing.
Do you remember if he went to grad school?
I do not remember if he went to grad school or not.
I wouldn't be surprised because we both went to grad school and we run in those circles.
Yeah.
Alex went to business school. And a lot of people who come to work with us, they went to business school.
Yeah, he seemed like he was a mid to senior level marketing manager slash IC. And so he was quite experienced.
IC meaning individual contributor.
Individual contributor, where you're executing work and you're not necessarily managing people.
The reason why I asked about business school is because there might be a misconception that people who went to business school are great at negotiations. In a future episode, we have a good friend of ours who went to a top business school and was taking a negotiations class at literally one of the best business schools in the world, actively taking a negotiations class, and hurt their negotiations in a almost irreparable way. Just wanted to very quickly add that misconception that business school people are good at negotiations. If you take a negotiations class, you're good at negotiations. C-level, mid-career, lawyers, what else? People think, oh no, I'm already good at negotiations. I know how to have these conversations. But we've made a future podcast episode. You will see why you need us.
Yeah, and not to say that people who go to business school and lawyers are not good negotiators, but we have seen again and again, we've been surprised, oh, you probably should have done it this way, or they would do certain things that we realize for salary negotiations or compensation negotiations is a very specific process that a lot of times what you learn in the classroom in an MBA negotiations
merger
course.
And acquisition negotiations.
We found
or
that
FBI hostage negotiations. Those are not very applicable.
Yeah.
And the other distinction is you might be good at negotiations, but you might not be great at negotiations. And my bar is for you to not leave any money on the table or any value on the table. Even things like start date and PTO, having direct reports or whatever. My preferred outcome for everyone, especially our clients, but everyone in the world, is if there's value on the table that will make everyone happier, or at least one person happier and the other side not unhappier, I want people to grab it. I'm a maximizer. I want to maximize good outcomes.
Back to the case study, this person who was interested in working with us, we're calling him Dylan. He sent me a write-up of the conversations that he had with the hiring manager and the back and forth. I was reading that, it was just hurting me internally because he had made some mistakes. The first mistake that he made is that he proactively shared his number and his range of what he was hoping to get paid. And if you follow our content, you know very well we say you should never share your number or range because you don't know if the number that you're putting out falls below the company's true budget, which they will never share with you. And if it does fall below, then you've left money on the table. The company is now, oh, Dylan is willing to get paid less than what we actually have. We don't have to pay him much more than that. But if you throw out a number or a range that falls above their true budget, you introduce risk that they think that they can't afford you or that there's a misalignment or a misunderstanding in the role.
Or you might come across as entitled.
Right, exactly. You could seem entitled, especially depending on how you communicate it. And what was really interesting is that Dylan had a relative who was working at the company, and he was already back channeling with them on how that relative's negotiations went. So the
relative made a mistake that we advise people not to make.
Yeah, and this is exactly what he said. Hey, my relative told this company, he proactively said, I can't accept the job for less than X dollars. He threw out a number, so he was sharing his number range, and the company instantly agreed to it. And then the relative was kicking himself. He said, oh my gosh, I probably could have asked for more.
Yeah.
So
this is why you don't give a number.
This is why you don't give a number, and it was a huge regret on that relative's side. He accepted the job, but he was always thinking, was there a lot more on the table that I could have got?
Yeah.
So you don't share a number or range. But then Dylan also shared a number or range with
maybe he went higher, but we don't know what their budget
we don't know
for
if
this role.
If it was like 2x that or something, right? And so that was one mistake he made. If we had started working before, we would have coached him on how to avoid sharing a number or range. At the very least, we would have told him, don't share your number or range, and here's what you can do instead. Yeah. So that was the first mistake he made. And then the second thing he did, and we spoke about this earlier, he gave me a play-by-play of the back and forth on the conversation. He really relied on market research and data of how much this type of role should be paid as the leading justification as to why he should be paid a certain amount.
This is such a common misconception out there.
Yeah.
And this is why a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a good negotiator. I know how to do market research. I can ask this and this person.
Yeah.
But for us, it's don't even do market research.
Yeah, and this is exactly why we don't think market research is that important. It was perfectly captured here. He told the company, hey, based on market research, similar roles typically fall in the mid 200,000s. We often say Market research is not that important because, first of all, the companies always have better data than you. They subscribe and pay for...
The company always has better data than you because they can afford to pay for employer-reported data. Whatever you are looking up on wherever, Google, Levels, Reddit, that's employee reported data, and it's nowhere near as accurate.
Yeah, but let's say in a hypothetical scenario, you actually, as the candidate, have the perfect data. You know exactly how much a role should be paid. As we had said earlier, if you bring that into the negotiations, a company will be prepared to basically invalidate what you say. Oh, thank you for doing that research, but here at our company, we have a unique compensation philosophy. This is how we get paid.
We don't need to fill this seat as urgently, and so we don't have to pay that level.
Yeah, so they always have canned responses to just not have the market research play as a factor in the negotiation. Yeah. So all that work that you did actually doesn't really matter. And with Dylan, this is exactly what happened. He brought his market research. He said, based on market research, this is how much I think I should be paid. And the employer responded with, we're a young startup, so we pay less than market, and none of our leadership team is even in that range that you proposed.
It's nowhere near that range.
Yeah, and then what they countered with is, hey, let's instead come up with KPIs that a bonus for you could be hinged on, and let's rely on performance-based components to increase your compensation. But this brought into discussion that now a lot of his comp will be only if he meets targets. It wasn't about guaranteed things that he can lock in during the job offer. And so all of a sudden...
It opened a can of worms.
It opened a can of worms. How did we even get here now? A lot of my comp is going to be performance-based, and that wasn't even in the convo, but that happened as a result of him bringing up this whole market research thing.
And I also see in your notes here, he came in with, oh, my market data shows I should make mid 200, so let's say 250, right? And they were like, no one in our company, even leadership doesn't make that much. We were thinking about 140. So 100K less, 110K less.
Yeah.
He was so far off. You can still bring it up. We have helped people increase their initial offers by up to 550K on top of their initial offer. Total comp, not base. Of course, you can bring it up.
If we had worked sooner with him, and if he really wanted to go the market research route, we probably would have advised him that it's actually not that important. It can unfold in such a way, such as the way that it actually unfolded. And we could have told him instead, the best leverage you can have is having other offers, if not other offers, other opportunities that you can very tactfully bring into the discussion to make sure that you're at least keeping the employer on the edge of their seat, that they feel like they are not your only option, that they need to fight for you to close you as a candidate, and all the other things to increase and protect your leverage along the way.
And ask for a written offer, or don't give away your leverage. Use that time that you used on market research. Instead, use that on getting calls with other companies.
Yeah. The third mistake that he made that we would have coached him not to do is that he was doing all these negotiations before he even received the written offer. And in fact, before he received an offer at all. And because he started having these conversations throughout the interview process. A company will often try to pressure you to have these conversations, but we have a whole approach on how to very tactfully deflect navigate it, still keep the company extremely interested in you all the way through until you receive the written offer, which is the point at which we will help clients start negotiating. But he started having these discussions early on. There was a lot of horse trading, back and forth, encounters, and all this stuff. And
long story short,
the company ended up passing on it.
He didn't
get the offer. You know, we don't truly know the counterfactual. Maybe they went with another candidate.
Maybe he wasn't the preferred candidate. But I bet as they were trying to get a sense of his salary and tactfully pressuring him to give away the numbers, he may have felt like this is trending towards an offer. I'm a preferred candidate.
Right.
And then he doesn't even end up getting an offer.
Yeah.
I can see their perspective too. If I had to guess, it really factored in where he comes in with, I want 250, and then them offering 140. Even if they went to 160, 180, they're like, it's such a big gap between what he had in mind. He will come in, kind of be unhappy, still look for other jobs, or he just try to bluff or try to strong arm us into giving him such a number compared to what they were anchoring. And I can see the company being like, yeah, he's not going to be happy here.
That is why when we work with people early in the process,
sooner than later,
we are helping them navigate how to make sure that you're not giving away leverage and you're protecting your leverage and deferring the negotiations to happen at the written offer stage. so many other little things that one may not realize are happening throughout the interview process. And we make sure that you avoid all these landmines, that you get through it in a way where you're fully intact and primed to get the highest comp increases when really the meaty part of the negotiations start.
And one fun fact is that I can see the mistakes people make when they negotiate with companies, sometimes by observing how they negotiate with us or how they interact with us. So the fact that you got on a free call, we're already offering a lot of value, and then he emailed you after we send the contract and be like, oh, here's where I'm at, and can you give me more advice on this?
And I gave him some more.
We are happy to help, but also we're very time constrained, so sometimes we will not be able to help. We also cannot help unless we know all the details. So we genuinely, on these calls, we're not trying to hold our cards to ourselves, but we genuinely cannot help you without knowing your priorities. Everything that's happened, like I said, the intake form is when did you apply, how quickly after you applied, how soon after you applied did they reach out to you, and a lot of detailed questions like that give us a sense of your leverage and how badly they want you and all that. But what I was going to say is he reached out to us even though he got the free call, and usually you go to around 30 minutes, got a 30-minute free call with us, then sent a long email with a lot of details, basically getting more free stuff. So if I had ended up working with him, I would be looking for, he comes across as entitled, and I would be giving him advice like, hey, make sure you tone down your emails a lot, be extra nice on calls and emails and texts, all interactions with the company, because we don't want them to even remotely think that you are entitled. And I'm a very direct communicator. I would say it like that. Hey, we don't want to seem entitled. Make sure to soften everything by like 3x.
Yeah. If it seemed like we sort of tore into this person, we hold nothing against it. We're just sharing, if you do want to work with us, why it's beneficial to work with us sooner than later. I just saw it unfold before my eyes, how detrimental it was for him to not work with us when he was interested, but continue to delay it. And then I saw these things happen that he basically kind of doomed his negotiations with that company. But best of luck to him. That's why the free call that we do, it's also to explore if we're a mutually good fit, because we want to work with people who are open to different perspectives. Sometimes we've had calls with people who just believe you only have to approach things in a certain way. And I will sometimes think, is this person coachable, and can they trust us to allow us to insert a different option of how to approach talking with the company? And if they won't do that, we would do our best, but sometimes we do get that sense.
This reminds me, I say this to everyone, tell your lawyer, your therapist, and your doctors everything. And since we started this company, I add, tell your negotiations consultant everything, because I have had one or two clients, one comes to mind, where he withheld some information from me. To this day, I'm not sure why, but I was advising him with the information I had, and he had withheld something, and he didn't get his way. Then he revealed that, oh, I actually withheld this information from you. I'm like, I would have advised you differently.
Yeah. So final biggest lesson takeaway is, if you want to work with us sooner than later, because we will get you the best results the sooner we are working with you in the process.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
All right.